Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. This is Reverend Frances Fayden, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you today one of my all-time favorite books, and I can't wait to dive in. But let's go ahead and just take a few deep breaths together. Get ourselves really grounded and really centered, obviously. If you're driving or listening, keep your eyes open. But if you can, if you're sitting somewhere and you can take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, bring your awareness and your energy back to your center and give yourself the gift of this moment. Come back home to yourself. And as you do this, you are preparing to receive the energy and the message of today's episode and the amazing, miraculous book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And knowing that you are going to be hearing things today to keep you in the energy of miracles and to help you magnify your miracles, let's take one more deep breath together in gratitude. And we can begin. I have been waiting to share this book with you. I wanted to wait until now because I'm recording this in the month of January, and January is the birthday month of Paramhansa Yogananda. I could spend every podcast episode from now until the day that I cross over talking about Paramhansa Yogananda. I love him so much. I'm so grateful, and I am so grateful to be able to share some of my story and some of this story and this book with you. So, I'm sure that you have heard people say, oh, this book has changed my life. And I've said that. You guys know I love books. I love them for that power because they do have this miraculous power to change your life, to change your perception. This book did exactly that. This book changed my life in a miraculous way. And I'm going to tell you the story of that in just a few moments. But I want to share with you that not only did it change my life, but it continues to change my life. I reread the Autobiography of a Yogi every year. I usually start around Yogananda's birthday on January 5th, and I go through and I reread the book. And every time I reread it, it's like a brand new book to me because my level of awareness and understanding continues to change. And when I first read the book, well, the very first time I read the book, I was a sophomore in college, and I thought it was a fascinating story. The only thing that I really remembered about it years later was there was this cool guy named Babaji who lived up in the Himalayas, and that's all I really remembered. And then I picked it up again when I was 36, and I had a miraculous experience with it. And I guess I'll just go ahead and tell you about my miraculous experience and jump right into it. So I had been searching. I'd already been ordained as an Interfaith Minister, and my wife was a Buddhist, and she had a morning and evening practice, and I really liked the fact that she had a morning and evening practice. And as an Interfaith Minister, you can pretty much choose what you're going to do because you're not following what anybody else tells you to do. And I didn't know what to do. I did a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I wanted something that would take me deeper. I wanted to figure out what my path was. And so I said a prayer, and my prayer was, please help me to find my path and to find whatever my spiritual practice is that will help me to go deep in connecting with the Divine Mother. And I said that prayer in 2002. And a little while after that, I was looking for a book to read, and I looked on my bookshelf, and lo and behold, I still had Autobiography of a Yogi on my bookshelf from when I was in college. Every time I moved, and that book came with me. It's a beautiful, the original one I had is this beautiful little orange book. The one I read now is the blue cover from 1946, and I will put in the show notes a link of where you can get that book for free. You can get an online version for free. And I'll also show you where you can get that 1946 edition. You can also get it on Amazon very inexpensively, and you can also get it somewhere else. So all of that will be in the show notes. So in 2002, I picked that book off the shelf. And this is something that you can do. If you're looking to get a message from a book, it's one of the reasons I love books, because they can act like an oracle. And I just randomly opened the book to any page because I was asking myself, should I read this book again? I don't know. Let me see if there's anything in here that speaks to me. So I opened up the book and I opened it up to the very chapter on Kriya Yoga. Chapter number 26, The Science of Kriya Yoga. And as I read that chapter, that's where Yogananda talks about the very practical and scientifically proven method that he brought from the East to the West of how to become self-realized. And he didn't have a lot of detail about the technique itself, but everything he said in there is like, I want that. That is what I've been looking for. And so then I reread that book in I think it was the summer of 2002. I devoured it. And it was as if I had never read the book before. And I was astounded at everything. Every question I had at that time was answered in that book. He talked about things I was interested in. Throughout my spiritual path, I've studied a lot of the major religions, and I love something about all of them. But there was never one that really covered everything, because I'm also into health and wellness. I love astrology and metaphysics. There's so many things that I love. And Yogananda touched on all of these things. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So then I did become a disciple of Yogananda in 2003. And not that you need to do that by any means, but one of the things I can tell you is that if you're drawn to this book and if you're drawn to him, it's for a really good reason. And even if he is not your ultimate teacher, even if he's not ultimately your guru, his promise is everybody that comes to him for help, he will help you find your guru. He will help you find your true way and your true path. And I've seen that over and over again, and I believe it 100%. So back to this book. This book reads like a spiritual adventure story. And some people can't get past the first few chapters where he's talking about his early life living in India. And what I say to you is either just keep going, because this book is filled with miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. If you're really interested in magnifying your miracles, study the life of somebody whose whole life was one miracle after another. And this book, he talks about all the great saints that he went to see. He talks about all the miracles that he witnessed. And I'm talking miracles with a capital M. I'm not just talking about some of our everyday kind of miracles. I'm talking about somebody being raised from the dead. I'm talking about his own guru being able to resurrect his own body. I'm talking about palaces materializing out of thin air. I'm talking about miracles with a capital M. And he writes about it with the same energy and same light-hearted, amazing gift that he has as he talks about trying to run away to the Himalayas and sneaking on a train with his friend when he's 12 years old, and all the things that he did to try to really, really be on his spiritual path, because his family was not supportive of that. So the book starts out with his parents and his early life, and right in chapter 1, there's a miracle. There is somebody bilocating in chapter 1. And so if you keep going, especially when you get to chapter 10, I meet my master, Sri Teshwar, and then chapter 12, Years in My Master's Hermitage. It's one of my favorite chapters, Years in My Master's Hermitage. And he talks about his own process of becoming self-realized and what it was like for him, and how he was able to balance going to school, which he never really liked, with being close to his spiritual teacher. And then chapter after chapter, he just goes through and tells you one amazing thing after another, and he explains it. Now, the thing I want to share with you today, for this particular podcast episode is the law of miracles. So since this is the Magnify Your Miracles podcast, I thought it would be good for us to talk about, this is chapter number 30, the law of miracles. Now, as I said, I reread this book every year. And what I notice is that I understand more of it. That's how I know I'm making progress and my awareness is expanding, is I used to read this book and parts of it, I didn't know what he was talking about. The resurrection of Sri Yukteswar, I'd get through the first page or two of that. And then after that, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about other dimensions and all this other stuff. And now I read it and I can get about halfway through that chapter and I know what he's talking about. And then I hit that wall. I'm like, now I don't know what he's talking about. It's the same thing with this chapter on miracles. You can go through this book and you may or may not understand some of it, but if you continue to go through it, this book will continue to bless you because Yogananda put his energy into the book. He put his vibration into the book. It's got a very powerful high vibration. And even though he has crossed over, because he was a master in this lifetime, he was able to infuse this book with that high vibration. So if you're open to it and you're aware of that, you will continue to be blessed by this book every time you read it. So I'm going to share a little bit of this chapter with you. Chapter number 30, the law of miracles. And this is how it starts. The great novelist Leo Tolstoy wrote a delightful story, The Three Hermits. His friend, Nicholas Roerich, has summarized the tale as follows. On an island, there lived three old hermits. They were so simple that the only prayer they used was, "We are three, thou art three, have mercy on us." Great miracles were manifested during this naive prayer. The local bishop came to hear about the three hermits and their inadmissible prayer and decided to visit them in order to teach them the canonical invocations. He arrived on the island, told the hermits that their heavenly petition was undignified, and taught them many of the customary prayers. The bishop then left on a boat. He saw, following the ship, a radiant light. As it approached, he discerned the three hermits who were holding hands and running upon the waves in an effort to overtake the vessel. "We have forgotten the prayers you taught us," they cried as they reached the bishop, "and have hastened to ask you to repeat them." The awed bishop shook his head. "Dear ones," he replied humbly, "continue to live with your old prayer." I love that story. And then the chapter begins. How did the three saints walk on water? How did Christ resurrect his crucified body? How did Lahiri Mahashaya and Sri Yukteswar perform their miracles? Modern science has as yet no answer, though with the advent of the atomic bomb and the wonders of radar, the scope of the world mind has been abruptly enlarged. The word impossible is becoming less prominent in the scientific vocabulary. Now, this book was written in 1946, and so this is just when the atomic bomb was happening. I can only imagine what Yogananda would say now, given all the advances that we have about things being possible or being impossible. Now, this chapter is amazing because the first few pages, he goes into how miracles happen, the laws of the physical world, the laws of Maya, Newton's law of motion, all of that. And he goes into that and talks about all of that. And I'm just going to be forwarding here. I'm reading on my online version of it. He talks about how a movie and a motion picture happens, but how none of that is actually real. And that is a lot of what our experience is that energy of not knowing, not being able to discern what's real and what's not real. Now, here's the part of this chapter that I wanted to read to you. After he goes on and talks about the law of relativity, and okay, I just need to back this up one more page here. I thought I was on the right page. He says, he's talking about the law of relativity, and he says, light velocity is a mathematical standard or constant, not because there is an absolute value of 186,000 miles a second, but because no material body whose mass increases with its velocity can ever attain the velocity of light. Stated another way, only a material body whose mass is infinite could equal the velocity of light. This conception brings us to the law of miracles. The masters who are able to materialize and dematerialize their bodies or any other object, and to move with the velocity of light, and to utilize the creative light rays in bringing into instant visibility any physical manifestation, have fulfilled the necessary Einsteinian condition. Their mass is infinite. The consciousness of a perfected yogi is effortlessly identified not with a narrow body, but with the universal structure. Gravitation, whether the force of Newton or Einsteinian manifestation of inertia, is powerless to compel a master to exhibit the property of weight, which is distinguishing gravitational condition of all material objects. He who knows himself as the omnipresent spirit is subject no longer to the rigidities of a body in time and space. I love that. So even though that sounds a little bit, heavy, he's basically saying this is how we live in that miracle consciousness, is we work on our concept of ourselves and we start to see ourselves as light beings. The very first step is to be in that energy of possibility. So in this book, there are so many examples of miraculous things happening, and he himself witnessing miraculous things, saints that are levitating, people that are raised from the dead. Amazing things happen, and so many funny things. Like I said, it reads like a spiritual adventure story, and you can get out of this book anything that you want. If you want to just laugh, you will laugh. If you want to really understand something deep, there are chapters where you can do that as well. So I cannot recommend this book enough to you. If you don't already have it, please get this book. If you already have it, maybe dust it off and read it again. And if there's a chapter that you're having a difficult time with, just move past that chapter and keep going. Because if you go through the whole book, you will start to see your own story. You'll start to see some of your struggles. And one of the things that really helps us to magnify our miracles is to be in the energy of miracles, to remind ourselves that A, they happen all the time, and B, there are people who have had these experiences and are willing to share them. It helps us to keep our mind and our heart and our spirit in tune with the vibration of miracles. So my friends, I am going to share with you some resources of where you can get this book for free. If you want to get a copy of it, you can probably get that online as well. I'm going to put all that in the show notes for you. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening to and sharing with me one of my very, very favorite books. And one of my favorite things of all is just to share books and things that have inspired my path. I just want to remind you that the path of miracles is right here, right now. And the key to magnifying them is to remember that your miracle is already here. God bless you, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.